right, good evening, everybody. My name is Mako Faniel, and I want to welcome you to our last webinar for the PD Green Program's Fall 2020 Justice Education Series. Again, my name is Mako Faniel. I am the Director of Tutor Training and Justice Education for the PD Green Program. And it looks like we have about 90 people online with us right now for our Reentry in Education webinar where we are centering the student perspective. In a few minutes, I'm going to introduce you to the moderator who will then introduce you to our panelists. But first, I want to establish the occasion. All right, so we are here tonight for the Reentry in Education, a student perspective, and that what comes after the colon is the most important part of our conversation tonight. So for our agenda today, we will start with some background on the PD Green program. Then we'll spend most of our time with our guests learning more about their experiences with the reentry processes, but also their experiences with education within that process. Then we're going to open up the floor to all of our participants for a Q&A, and then we'll close asking you to complete a survey that helps us do our work better. And for some reason, my watch thinks I'm talking to it. Our hashtag. So I know everyone has their phone either in front of them or in their hand, or they have some type of device. So I'm asking you to log on to Twitter or Facebook and tell your folk that you're excited about attending this webinar, Reentry in Education, and use this hashtag, hashtag PGP Justice Ed. This is the hashtag that you should use all night on social media platforms to comment on the good things that you hear from the panelists tonight. And so we have a thread that starts back in early October. And so we'll be able to follow this on Twitter. So please tweet tonight and tell people about what we're doing at the PD Green program. Again, that's PGP Justice Ed. So now I want to briefly introduce you to the PD Green program. All right, so at the PD Green program, we are a educational justice and educational management nonprofit with a twofold mission. Okay, so we support incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people enrolled in high school equivalency or college courses, while on the inside and for returning citizens. We exist to help system impacted people reach their freedom dreams through education. We do this by providing trained college and community volunteers who serve as tutors for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated learners. But we don't stop there. Not only do our volunteers learn how to be effective tutors, but they also participate in learning that helps them understand the injustices manifest in the carceral system, okay? And so we do this because we want a world where all those who have been denied education or who have been harmed by the carceral state have access to high quality education programs. And we want a world where both volunteers and students work together to reimagine justice and freedom, all right? And so for the past 12 years, we've operated the largest multi-state tutoring program in jails, prisons, and detention centers. We were on target to continue doing this in 2020, but COVID hit, which created an opportunity to remix what we do. So since we can't get inside of jails, prisons, and detention centers, we're now supporting returning citizens who are pursuing academic credentials through a reentry program. We launched a college bridge program. We are now providing virtual tutoring. So most of the tutoring that we're doing this fall is virtual. And we also formalized the work that we've been doing on campuses for many years into something called a Justice Education Series. So COVID, forced us to rethink what type of support that we are offering. It changed all of our lives. So when COVID hit in March, we began to think about how we can still support the educational goals of system impacted people. So we reached out to reentry organizations and we began to think about how we can do our work virtually. We also entered, the reentry space because we realized that we couldn't actualize our vision where if we're only supporting in-prison programming, because there are thousands of folks returning home who have been denied education or harmed by the carceral state. And so as many states move to decarcerate, the need for educational support for returning citizens increases. And so each semester over the last 12 years, our field staff and PD Green organizations typically hosted about 30 different events on campuses, and that were only open to students on those campuses. And these events focused on the context which produces mass incarceration and help students on campus and volunteers approach systemic change. We have now formalized this because COVID presented that opportunity, and these events in the form of webinars open to all volunteers regardless of their region or university, and also open to the public. So this semester, our Justice Education series focused on the carceral state in education and also helping us understand reentry. So we had our first webinar on October 8th, the carceral state in education. Then we had a webinar on October 28th, titled Approaches to Reentry. And then this one is Reentry in Education, a Student Perspective. So we are here tonight because, we do this work because of students. And we want to make sure that our work is student-centered, and that the work of reentry is focused on the returning citizen, and that those are the voices that are being uplifted because those are the voices that matter the most. So now I'm going to introduce you to our moderator for tonight, who will be guiding our conversation. So Nomi Sofer is the program director of Voices of Reentry, an organization that chronicles the experiences of formerly incarcerated persons. And so I now hand you over to Nomi, who will introduce you to our panelists and then guide our conversation.
Great. Thank you for that introduction, Mako. And I'm delighted to be here this evening. As Mako mentioned, my reentry work is all about creating space to hear the stories of impacted people and learn from them. And our panelists today have very rich stories to share. So let's get started with the round of introductions. Tia Ryans is a political advocate and a direct witness to the insidious and detrimental impact of the criminal justice system. Currently, Tia serves as the founding executive director of Forcing Out Recidivism Through Education, also known as Forte House. She focuses on providing a healthy and stable living environment while promoting autonomy for formerly incarcerated students transitioning from incarceration through post-secondary education. She is a passionate student of the intersection of environmental, social, and criminal injustices that impact disenfranchised communities. She also uses her platform to elevate stories of women and girls affected by physical and sexual abuse. Next, we have Arthur Bambury, the Executive Director of Partakers, a prison education and mentoring organization. Arthur has been associated with Partakers for more than 20 years, first as a student in the Boston University's prison education program, and subsequently as an employee and now the Executive Director. In 2020, Arthur co-founded the Tufts Education Reentry Network, known as TURN, a group of formerly incarcerated people and their families. Tufts students and faculty, and community reentry organizational leaders. They're working closely together to create and deliver My Turn, a credentials-based credentials, skills-based courses, and individualized mentoring for people coming out of prison. And I'm really looking forward to hear more about that, Arthur, because that's a brand new and really exciting project. Also joining us tonight is Dante Small, a proud member of the Goucher College class of 2018. Dante is the first graduate of the Goucher Prison Education Partnership Program, a privately funded program that gives incarcerated men and women the opportunity to pursue and obtain a bachelor's degree while incarcerated. He's active in the Baltimore community and is partnered with Baltimore-based GPEP and Prison to Professional, P2P, a nonprofit organization that provides educational support to formerly incarcerated adult students. Dante often speaks publicly on issues of education, criminal justice, and felon disenfranchisement. Our fourth panelist is Sanford Barber. Sanford is an advocate, mentor, and student at Pasco Hernando State College in Florida, where he expects to graduate in December 2020, next month. Congratulations, with an associate's in arts degree. Dante plans to further his education at the University of South Florida through their IT program for his undergraduate studies. For the spring 2021 semester, Sanford will intern for the Smithsonian National Museum of American History. There, he will be contributing to major projects, managing current collections and building future collections of the African American Collections Division of Political and Military History. He will also be assisting with major grant writing. Sanford is always striving to become a better leader in his community. Welcome, Sanford, and congratulations on your impending graduation and that very exciting internship. All right. So thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight. We're really excited to kick off this conversation today. To start us off, I'd like to ask each panelist to introduce yourselves to the audience. More specifically, I'd like you to share a little bit about how you exist in this world today and talk briefly about how you participated in educational programs while you were incarcerated and after your release from incarceration. So, who would like to go first? If not. All right, Tia, could you kick things off for us?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tia. I'm really excited to be here. I think the work that PD Green is doing is really amazing. So thank you for having me. Who I am today. I describe myself as being resilient. I'm excited that during the pandemic, I became, with a few signatures at the same time on the same day, a first-time homeowner, entrepreneur, and a business owner. So all wrapped in one, just a couple of signatures on the same day. So I'm excited about that. And the irony of it is, you know, this happened on April 28, 2020, and that was actually 5 years today to the date that I was released in April 28, 2015. So my journey to get to this place was really difficult. We talk about collateral consequences of incarceration. We talk about felon disenfranchisement. Those are not mythical things. They are a reality. They were my reality. That's the reason that Fort House exists today. Fort House provides transitional housing for formerly incarcerated students pursuing post-secondary education. And we want to make sure that we provide that community support. And it's so important for us to stick to that mission, because I'm a person that did not have, you know, the family or community support that is necessary when it comes to recidivism. You know, statistically, they say in the first 3 to 6 months, those without community support after release tend to recidivate. And, you know, I want to make sure that our folks coming home, you know, that they have that chance, right? They have the opportunity. They have that one little leg up that makes them successful. I did start my academic journey while I was incarcerated through NJ STEP. And And initially, they did not have higher education accredited classes inside correctional facilities, and well, inside the correctional facility that I was at. And you had to outsource it, or they did offer, but they weren't credited. You couldn't take the credits with you. And there was actually specific criteria. I got incarcerated as a teenager, and I had been sentenced to serve 12 years in state prison. So one of the criteria was you had to be within 5 years of your release, and then you had to be under 26. So I was like, okay, well, by the time I'm hitting this release, I'm going to be too old to take these college classes. And as a person that was sentenced under the NARA Act, the No Early Release Act, there was no such thing as good time, time off, good behavior. I knew my day, the day I got sentenced. So, as a young, impressionable teenager, as someone who was angry, at the way that I was treated by the system, I spent a lot of time in solitary confinement. So when higher education entered the facility, something tangible that I can actually take with me, I was excited. I said, okay, this is a reason for me to focus, for me to kind of plan my reentry ahead of time. I think people kind of misinterpret that reentry starts when you get out, but it actually kind of starts before you get out. So this was a way of me kind of planning and prepping for my reentry. And I was really excited. I went through the steps, chose my major. When I was released, I did continue my education on a traditional academic community, and I became a first-generation college graduate. So, in a nutshell, that's who I am today.
Thank you, Tia. That's really wonderful. Congratulations on that huge milestone this April. Dante, could you go next?
Sure. As mentioned, my name is Dante Small. I'm the first Gaucho Prison Education Partnership graduate to graduate on the main campus. My educational journey started at Maryland Correctional Institution, Jessup. And it started in 2012 when GPEP entered the institution. Prior to that, I had was really seeking out information any way that I could. I would was trying to teach myself Spanish, failed miserably, was picking up books and reading, and at that point in time I really struggled academically to read and didn't have the arithmetic skills that one would need to even though I graduated from school, to give more context, that one would need to really be successful in college. So all of this led me to believe that I was someone that was more so on the track to be a trade worker, maybe construction or auto mechanic or something like that. It didn't really give me the confidence to believe that I had what it took to attend college until GPEP came. And when this course came, I was actually enrolled by my cell buddy, who's actually on a phone call with me today. And he signed me up. One day I came back from the shop and he said, hey, there's this program coming. And he signed me up, and I was like, all right, but let's do it, right? Let's do whatever it takes to get enrolled. The program, to give you a little more context about the the admission process, it mirrored the same as what it would be out in society, where we had to write an application. It was very intense. We had to meet and schedule 3 or 4 meetings with the professors to come in. They would then look at our writing, which for me, I wasn't that confident, but they would look at the writing and decide if you were someone that they were willing to take on and work with. To both of our surprise, we both was admitted, and my educational journey started from that day, and I haven't stopped being a dedicated student since.
Wow. Thank you, Dante. That's very, very empowering to hear you talk about the transformation and really starting to think of yourself as college material.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Sanford, want to go next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sanford Barber. Who I am today in this world, I want to start off by saying I'm a proud father, proud dad, 3 beautiful girls. Um, my educational journey started in prison. Like Dante mentioned, me and him, we shared the cell. We shared the cell with one another, and Gaucho came to offer the college courses, which are rigorous. And they offer the same content, the same rigorous courses that they and curriculum that they offer on the main campus. So I decided to sign up when I seen it, and decided to sign Dante up. My journey getting to that point, it was actually a long journey, because when I first entered prison, I didn't have a GED, so I started from the basics. Learning basic math and writing skills in order to obtain my GED. And the reason I did that, because I wanted to better myself, and I wanted something different for myself. So I took on started the process of pursuing education. And when I was released from prison after serving 8 years, I immediately contact Amy Rosa, which is the executive director of the GPEP program, and she helped me with the process of enrolling in college down here in Florida. And I've been pursuing ever since. I've been facing many challenges like everyone. For me, it was creating balance. That was one of my major challenges. Balancing family time and work life and school, of course, because no matter what, you got to get the work done. So once I created that balance, I was on a path to getting the education, getting the degree. And as mentioned, I received my associates in arts in December, which is next month, and I plan on continuing my education from there.
Great. Thank you, Sanford. And I'm sure your daughters are very proud of you. Arthur, can you take it away?
Yes, hello. My name is Arthur Bembury. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm privileged to be a part of this webinar. I entered prison when I was 17 years old and became involved later in my incarceration with the Boston University Prison Education Program through a mentoring program called Partakers, which, by the way, I am now the executive director of that particular program. So it's come full circle in that sense. Inside of prison, I was attracted to the aspect of education because it afforded me the ability to have an unbiased dialogue with people that would hold me accountable and also afford me the opportunity to express myself and reach a fuller potential. So that's what attracted me to education while I was on the inside with Boston University. Coming home after being paroled almost 20 years ago, the same organization offered me an employment opportunity. So I started working with them over 20 years ago. And now the world that I exist in today is, creating programs, giving back, finding ways to create avenues for people that are coming home so that they can reach a fuller potential. I think for me, program design and also reentry work is something that's close to my heart. I feel it's my natural manure because I can exist on both sides of the equation as a formerly incarcerated person and also as somebody that's as an administrator of an organization now, of a program that is able to straddle the fence and work with the officials of the Department of Corrections, where you have to maintain a fragile existence, and also to be able to work with collaborators and like-minded organizations on the outside to form a partnership that can offer resources. So it's been an experience for me, but I think it's something that is very eye-opening, and I think it's something that's very worthwhile in my experience. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's really, I love the idea that you've come full circle and now you're the executive director of Partakers, where you used to be a mentee. I think that's really wonderful. So we're going to jump right into a bunch of questions. And the first thing we're going to talk about a little bit is this concept of reentry. A few weeks ago, the PD Green program hosted a webinar that featured different reentry programs that talked about their approach to reentry. And we asked the panelists to define reentry from their perspective as administrators and formerly incarcerated people. So this evening, we want to ask you the same question. We know that the definition of reentry varies depending on who is doing the defining. So I'd like to ask you, and I think it's important for all of us to hear from you, what is reentry and who is reentry for? Who wants to take it first?
So I guess I'll start off again.
We're very brave, Tia.
Oh, no problem at all. So reentry. So when we think about the definition of reentry, right? It's the assisting a formerly incarcerated individual, during their reentry back into society, during that process. And I think when it comes to reentry, and I just previously stated this, that reentry does not start when a person is released. It must start prior to the release, right? And I'm not talking about, the month before you're being released and they shut your account down so that you can save your $30, the dollar a day that they've given you, right? So I'm not talking about that kind of reentry. I'm talking about a more holistic approach, some wraparound services. And I think also the mental health component. I know for me personally, when it came to reentry, a big thing that I noticed when I was released is there are organizations, making sure that people do have those social determinants. So housing, safe environment, food, education, clothing, things like that, employment. There are organizations designed to do that. But one thing I noticed that was overlooked was the socialization component. So what I mean by socialization, I did not forget how to say please and thank you. I didn't. But after serving over a decade in prison and, a very impressionable time in my life, I forgot that if someone bumped into me, they were not trying to attack me, right? You come from an environment that is completely different, and it's kind of immature to think that, like a light switch, a person can turn back into what you deem is the ideal citizen, right? So it's human nature to adapt to your surroundings. Anyone watching right now, you have the ability to adapt to any situation. That's just who we are as a species. So when you are put inside a correctional facility and you adapt to the environment, and that's not even an overnight adaptation. You can't assume that re-entering, it's an overnight, transformation. That is unrealistic and, again, irresponsible. So I would definitely caution when people want to define re-entry to define it from its starting point of before a person has actually left the correctional facility. That would be my ultimate advice.
I can go next. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And I didn't get a chance to answer the first part of the question. We said, how do I exist in this world? Today, I'm a software engineer, an advocate for formerly incarcerated people. But to this next question about what reentry is and who is it for, prior to being released, I would think reentry was just, for that individual, and just solely like, all responsibility and burden of reentry should just be on their shoulders. But what I come to realize with my lived experience is that it's, it does take a holistic approach. It does take the whole community to get involved, because what I did experience while incarcerated is, we are behind that gated fence and a lot of things go on, and society just doesn't have no idea, what happens in the institutions and what people are dealing with and how that has shaped them in one way or another to deal with the world. For me, I didn't think that I would be, I served 6.5 years to give more context. I served 6.5 years, and I didn't think I would have too much of an impact, but it was an impact. I struggled getting along with my family initially. I struggled just, utilizing the right tools to like socialize. I didn't feel safe in like social settings. I felt overwhelmed shopping. And I didn't really necessarily have the tools to do practical adult things, meaning like, learning about banking and credit and things like I just felt overwhelmed with everything being put on me at that point in time. I had lived out like in the county area. So, the buses were very slow and I was just really left to my own devices. And if it had not been of the support of programs like GPEP that connected me with individuals that was able to come out and help me with areas that I was struggling with and help me also get back into school and get back on that track, I would have not have been able to mitigate a lot of the issues that I was, or mitigate or avoid a lot of issues that I would have got into just walking around trying to figure out things on my own.
That was well put, Dante. I can go. Am I able to speak now? Okay. I mean, for me, reentry is the act of re-entering something. And when it was my turn, when it was time for me to re-enter society, I was re-entering to a society I no longer knew because I had the misperception that things were still the same when phones were different when I came home. So just learning how to, use basic things, what things people seem as basic as today is learn how to use a phone, a smart TV, and things like that. And as everyone else mentioned, just having that prison mentality. One of the things I noticed because I came down to Florida and stayed with my brother and my father and things like that. I was selfish, when I learned how to just worry about myself from prison. So when I was home, my stuff was my stuff. When everybody else in the house was, this is for everybody. This body wash is for for whoever uses the shower. But me, I would take all my stuff and just it was like a person mentality. It was just little things like that I had to get used to. That it's okay to share with others and things like that. So reentry, I definitely think it's a mental component that needs to be worked on, and it needs to be more programs, I believe, to help people deal with things mentally and get mental stability. Before they enter society, one of the best things that I was able to do was go to a program called work release, where I was able to get a regular job and get acclimated back into society and get that experience. And even when I started my work release job, just dealing with people inside and on a work environment, I noticed a lot of guys was handled like if they had a job in prison, they were so aggressive. You know, I was working in a restaurant and a server may come and ask one of us, we would cook, most of us were cooks, may come ask one of us for some ketchup more than once, and then guys would get an attitude not because of the prison mentality. So I think it needs to be some social work done um, before re-entering society though. I think, and one last thing I'd like to add is that stigma that society has about re-entering felons, convicted felons, and because they just most people automatically just rule us out and just put us allow us to be defined by the crimes that we committed in our past, and they don't see that change. And a lot of times the doors are shut and opportunities are not given because of our past and the things we've been through. So I think it needs to be a discussion, at least, about people and outgrowing certain things.
I think that all of the institutionalized idiosyncrasies that people form while they're inside, and they have been mentioned by my fellow panelists, I agree with it 100%. And their description of reentry is spot on. One of the things that I'd like to point out that is so important, as Sanford just mentioned, is having a reentry program that focuses on a number of things. And one of them, most importantly, is creating a healthy social network for people when they come home. The other also, which is so important, again, Sanford, to your issue, is making sure that the reentry program involves peer navigators, people that have been home, so that they can be a peer to you and formerly incarcerated people, and showing them how to navigate in the world as it exists today. I think that a reentry program should be all-encompassing. It should include things that are crucial and critical to us in coming home and becoming reestablished, that would involve housing, wellness programs to show us about nutrition. We don't know what a great diet is until we come home and find out that we're not supposed to be eating what we've been fed for the last number of years. Employment opportunities, network opportunities, and also the most important thing, housing, how to help us get situated with housing. So those are all of the things that my colleagues just mentioned that should be included in a successful reentry program. And that's just some of it, so.
Thank y'all. I think those, the answers that you provided kind of spoke to like what the needs are for reentry, and broaden it from just, something that begins when at the moment of release. It begins, at the moment of incarceration, and it includes more than dealing with the social determinants and making sure that people are not returning, but it deals with the entire person in their community. And so I wanted to go from there, and we began talking about it already. These barriers and challenges of collateral impact. And so in our last webinar called Approaches to Reentry, we learned about the different approaches that organizations have to attempt to help returning citizens and their families thrive and reach their freedom dreams after incarceration. And so when we train our volunteers before they can even tutor, we talk about these challenges, barriers that and the collateral impacts of incarceration, because we want them to understand two things of many, that how access to education might mitigate some of these challenges, but also help them understand the impact of punishment on formerly incarcerated people and their families, and how these barriers to reentry might impact their academic pursuits. And so with this question, I'm hoping that you can expand upon what you've already begun to mention is, what are those challenges, barriers, and collateral impacts of incarceration for you? And then if you can also explain like where education fits into this reentry journey for you. So put more simply, like what was your process for returning after incarceration, and where the education fit into this process? And if we can get started with Arthur, and then this is open for everybody.
For me, and as well as for a lot of other formerly incarcerated people, education takes a place that is so important in our lives, because when you're home and you're trying to find employment, that's one of the first things on the application that they ask you about is your education. How long have you been inside, or where have you been, and things that you've learned. So that's important in that sense. I would say that the collateral impact of incarceration, of not having access to education, mostly manifests itself in the area of the knowledge, content knowledge or technical support when you come home. There are so many people that come home that don't know how to use the communication avenues that people are using now, just to communicate with jobs and with employees and things like that. So Google Suites, PowerPoint, Excel, Java, any of the things that people are using, many of the things that people are using today is so important as far as tech support goes in education when people come home. So that's been, for me anyways, that's been something that we've paid close attention to and realized that that is where the gap has been for people that have been coming home from prison to be able to reconnect with society. As far as the challenge of getting back involved educationally, finding the resources to do it is important. There are scholarships, there are grants. I know that one opportunity when people first come home is to get student loans and things of that nature when they first come out. But I always caution people that are in our program, when you're coming home, you'll be offered student loans, but I don't always advocate that it's something that they should take right away, because number one, you have employment opportunities and employment obligations, but it's so hard for you to be able to start getting into debt as soon as you come home, especially if you don't have a full grasp on financial literacy yet. So there are several things that impact people when they're first coming home for as far as incarceration goes. I think having an advocate through an institution that will help you navigate your way along, because you need that person to show you like the roadmap to what's available to you and where you can go. So
let me before y'all answer that, thank you, Arthur. I want to give some context to why I created this question. It was for two reasons. Many of our volunteers don't have any family or community history of incarceration and have not seen like what that looks like close up. And then also abolition and reform are very it's hot right now. You know, we can actually say abolition now, but we couldn't say that. We may not have been able to say that 6 months ago. So it's very hot right now on college campuses. But I think that again, there's a reality that's missing about we close all jails and prisons today. There's still people that have been harmed and have been harmed by the carceral state on the inside, and then just communities that are harmed. And so this question comes out of that. And so it's not designed to like where you lay out all your trauma, but like really like what is that like the coming home process we know like some of it, but what kind of is the day-to-day like, and then like when did education even come into the picture?
I could are you done?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
For me, when I first came home, I had to stay on a ankle monitor for 3 months, so I couldn't leave the house, which meant that that kind of gave me some time to adjust to technology. I was fortunate enough to come home. I'm a child of a single mother, and I moved back into my mother's residence. And I was fortunate enough to have access to technology, and I used that time to like familiarize myself with like using a computer and using the phone. And then of course I started, my journey looking for a job. And at that point, I really didn't have, a resume or understand. Like I was used to my old school way of how I did it, where I walked in the mall and I just picked up an application and signed and just filled them out on the spot, and then just for each store until someone gave me an opportunity. But now I have this record, and I can't leave the residence. So at that point, my family was the ones taking care of me behind the wall. So when I came home, I couldn't really expect too much financial support, because a lot of that was depleted, supporting me throughout the 6 years. So I was on my own there. I didn't have any clothes. And the only thing I really had that was of value was the contact information to the director of GPEP, Goucher Prison Education Partnership, Amy Rosa. And she was able to give me some guidance in terms of what options were available to me, what was close by, and then also put me in contact with someone that was willing to come to my home while I was on a monitoring bracelet and help me fill out the FAFSA. And not only help me fill out the FAFSA, but explain, all the intricacies of the FAFSA, let me know what I did, what I could qualify for in terms of, working. I forget what it's called when you work and they pay half of your salary. It'll come to me. But she let me know what all these things, what I could get once I enrolled. And that was it for me, right? Because I wanted to do everything in my power to stay out of trouble. I wanted to make sure I had become traumatized from constantly seeing people come back into the system, 3 months and 6 months after they left, and it all be technical violations. So I wanted to make sure that I stayed clear of that. And the only way I saw that was to continue the same routine that kept me out of trouble while I was inside, and that was to enroll back into school. And at that point, I had after my release, I had accumulated already 26 credit from Goucher College. So I rationalized in my mind, like, you halfway there, why stop now, right? And I was going to sell myself short. I could be completely honest. I was just going to get associates. And if it wasn't for actually one of the my professors that I had while incarcerated, who invited me out to lunch and listen to my plan of getting associates, and in the most, I guess, like, polite way, just told me, like, you kind of lowballing yourself there, and you have more potential than that. And to me, I didn't even want to like really consider that. I was just like, man, I just figured, like, you get a degree, you're set. And I'm so glad that I did choose to continue my education beyond associates, and go on to pursue my bachelor's in computer science and a minor in sociology, because that degree has paid tenfold since I've received it. And it really, like, set me up for a successful future. And not only that, it showed a lot of people coming behind me that anything is possible, right? Because here it is, you have this guy that couldn't read the best, couldn't write the best, and was horrible at math, and now I'm one of the top students in the computer science department.
That was nice, Dante, like how you put that. For me, as I started my education behind bars while I was in prison through Goucher Prison Education Partnership in 2012, along with Dante, and probably, like, I'm gonna say year and a half after starting, I was shipped to another prison. So I went from, taking rigorous courses, reading difficult texts, and really working my brain and building my toolbox, creating these tools for myself in order for me to navigate through this world, to going back to being warehoused in a prison where I was just sitting there just doing my time like most prisoners do, just going day-to-day life, just existing. And when I compared and contrast, the two different experiences, I knew, like, education was for me, like, because education allowed me to challenge the things, the very thinking and the things that I had in my life, and systems that I had in place in my life that put me in prison. So it gave me the tools to critically think and navigate through the world. And when I came home, this goes back to not having the skills and just being thrown back into society. I didn't even know how to open up set up an email address, and I knew that right there was a problem, because when I asked someone to help me set up an email address, they just looked at me like if I was joking or something like that. And And going back to filling out applications and stuff like that, just like Arthur said, the first thing they ask is, what's your educational experience? And I feel like, honestly, that I wasn't worth anything, that I had nothing to offer when filling out applications. Like, it's like, why would someone hire me? One, I got a felon, and two, I don't even got no education. So I want to build a foundation for myself in order for me to be marketable in this world. And I want to create a space between my past and my future so far, and build content and things that's worthy and notable of as far as accomplishments to separate me from my past, so people could look at me in a different light. And I believe that education was able to do that, and is able to do that. So, that's why I decided to pursue education while when I came home.
I have so much to say. So one thing is, I'm glad that you pointed out who was in the audience for the most part, and individuals that probably aren't familiar with people that are formerly incarcerated. So I know that there is this cliche that individuals for the most part that are formerly incarcerated come from a specific type of area, economic status, and things like that. I was born and raised in a very affluent neighborhood, and in a town that I knew no one who was formerly incarcerated, right? Mass incarceration is exactly what it's called. It's mass. It does not stop at a specific state, border, town, economic status, race, gender. It doesn't stop at any of those things. And again, I came from an area where I still don't think it's just like kind of taboo. But and people would say, "Oh my God, you have this big house," and the bigger the house, the bigger the secrets. That's what I say, right? That's how I describe it. So to be very transparent on a Zoom right now, my encounter with the justice system actually started before I was a teenager, and I went to this adult facility. It started before I was sentenced to those 12 years and served 10 and a half. I actually got incarcerated for the first time at 14 or 15 years old because I had ran away from home too many times. So when I got arrested, they said, okay, you keep running away from home. You obviously must be a delinquent. You're not following the rules at home. So we're going to send you to a juvenile detention center. And because I went through this cycle over and over, I got incarcerated at juvenile detention center 6 times in a year and a half period. Not one time, whether it be the education system in middle school, no one said, well, what's going on at home? Why are you running away? What are you running away from? What are you trying to run to? Or, no one asked those questions. Not a police officer, not an educator, not a social worker, not a neighbor. No one asked those questions. So I went through this cycle of, going in and out. I would go to a detention center, get released, go to a group home, run away, get arrested. And, when you speak about someone getting arrested as an adult, in taking into account what happened as a child, like what created that snowball effect of behavior that kind of landed them in this situation. What was the environment? I'm sure everyone watching right now, when they were younger and you imagine yourself as a child and you say, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be this. It could be a doctor, a firefighter, a veterinarian, an artist, whatever that child said they wanted to grow up and be. Ask yourself, are you in the profession that you said you wanted to grow up and be? Because if you're not, there's a reason. What happened? What was there a circumstance? Was there a person? Was there a system? What was in place that kind of changed your mind? Did you evolve as a person and say, you know what, that's just not for me. That's not my talent. Whatever it is, I caution you to think that and remember that everyone in this call, and we're not an exception, we're not the only people, that are formerly incarcerated and decided to, take this path, but there are many and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. that are just like us out there. But I caution you to think that there were systems set in place. There were environmental impacts. There were people, there were barriers, there were hurdles, there were obstacles set in place because we once too were those same children that had a dream. Like I thought I was going to be an emergency room surgeon and an artist. I don't know how I was going to combine the two, sprinkle some glitter on some patients. I don't know what I was going to do, but those were my dreams. And again, I was running away from something, and those dreams died, right? They just disappeared. That education was not a priority at that point. I will run away 100 days in a row just to make sure that I was safe. Education was on the back burner. So when I got incarcerated and they put education and they brought that inside this institution, I said, okay, this is not only a chance for me to have something tangible when I get out, but this is a chance for me to actually truly enjoy what was in front of me, right? Going to school for me was not enjoyable when I was a child. Going to school for me was a way to get out the house. It was being a cheerleader, being on a debate team, being on a swim team. Those were not because I was just so outgoing. It was a reason for me to have something to do after school so I don't go home, right? So, you know, education, it was almost my savior. It was for me like my second chance. I'm like, okay, now I have a chance to kind of get this right. And what do I want to do with that? And again, that took me, you know, through the end of my incarceration. Now, initially when I got out, you know, education was not at the top of my list. Survival was at the top of my list. And that is hard. If someone tells you it's not, they're lying, right? For someone who did not have the support that is necessary to sustain for anybody, any human, doesn't matter your age, your economic status, your background, you need human support. You need community support. We all do. It feels good when you go home. You can talk to your husband. You can talk to your wife. You can talk to your kids. You can pick up the phone. Those things feel good. Those things shape who you are, how you think, what you say, where you go. You have social capital. You have all those things that make you who you are, right? But when you're re-entering, and I'm going to put those in quotation marks because I think it was Sanford who pointed out before that when you're re-entering, you're going back to a new community, right? You're going out to a new era, a new time. You were put in a time capsule. We all were in a time capsule. Nothing stopped. We stopped. Nothing else stopped. So it's not really re-entering. You are entering for the first time in an area, in an era, in a time, in a place that you have no idea what it is. You are an alien at this point. You're learning everything. It's a culture shock, to be honest. Just like if someone immigrated from another country, it is a culture shock. So, you know, I went through this process of trying to figure out who I was as a person. I didn't have an address to go home to, so I spent 90 days and a halfway back. And then during that 90 days, I said, okay, I'm going to capitalize off of their resources. They have some community ties. I'm going to go find me a job. I don't have to pay bills, so I'm going to save my money, right? I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make sure that, you know, I am my support system. There's no plan B. Tia, I am plan A through Z. I count on me, so I got to get this right. That's the mentality. That's where my resiliency comes in. And, you know, I think it was Dante who pointed out, I didn't know how to even apply for a job. I had never had a job. I got incarcerated as a teenager. I was always incarcerated. That was my life. That's what I knew. So I went to a restaurant and I sat there for 2 hours. 2 hours. I didn't know you had to fill out an application. I didn't know you had to bring a resume. I just sat there like, I don't know what movie I saw it in, but I showed up and I got hired because I sat there and watched how they carried plates, how they interacted with customers, how they punched in things on a computer. I sat there and I learned. I didn't just sit there to waste time. I learned everything. So by the time he came and said, okay, why are you here? I'm like, well, I know how to do X, Y, and Z because I sat there and I can't say I did it because I just learned it. You didn't ask when I learned it, but I learned it. So, you know, finding housing. There's this big movement about banning the box. Okay, you can ban the box that on housing applications that says Do I have a prior felony conviction? But at the end of the day, they ask other questions that will still hinder you. There's still a bunch of felon disenfranchisement. It's still a bunch of hurdles that you have to overcome. They ask for credit history. You know, I 0 credit. I've never had credit. They ask for rental history. I'd never lived on my own. You know, they ask for things that are beyond just your traditional, do you have a felony conviction? So things like that need to be taken into account when it comes to housing. And then at one point they asked me to give pay stubs. I was a waitress. What I made did not get reflected on it was the most difficult time of my life. But again, I'm playing A through Z. I am going to make it. So finally, I reached out to someone from Rutgers University through the NJ STEP program. NJ STEP offers higher education classes inside correctional facilities. That's where I started my academic career. It was about 6 months after my release. And I said, hey, I want to go to school. And they were like, oh, I thought you wanted to wait the way you were talking. So they provide that pipeline. You know, we talk about that reentry. We talk about that community support. My co-panelists have been talking about that constantly. And NJ STEP actually provided a pipeline. They started your academic career while you're inside. 6 months prior to release, they say, hey, what do you want to do? What is your plan when you get out? Do you have a place to stay? Where are you going? They ask those questions. And based on your answers, they know how to help you navigate through that, you know, through that reentry period. Now, they're exactly what they are. They're, you know, making sure that you have access to higher education. So they're not going to have an apartment waiting for you, but they make sure they keep tabs on you, right? What area are you in? Because we can meet you halfway, right? Or if we don't provide housing, we can probably connect you with something closer to campus, right? That's what they do. They created that. I reached out, I said, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to go back to school. You know, when do I start? And I enrolled the fall semester after my release, and it was the best thing I have ever done in my life, continuing my education. And the networking, the social capital, the way that I was able to expand my mind and challenge norms. And I'll give you a perfect example. My degree is in political science. And people ask me, do you want to be a politician? You want to be in politics? I hate politics. No, I don't. So it confuses them. But I'll tell you this, the same way that they say the devil knows the Bible, so he knows how to maneuver it, systems and people and how to get them to do what he wants. I need to know the system that I felt treated me unfairly. I need to learn it inside and out. So I'm going to get a degree in it so I can learn your system, so I can fight your system. And that's what I did. But just to make a long story short, my first semester again was the best thing, you know, it was the best decision I ever made. We were tasked to have a group project to build a housing model. And we did. And then after that semester, I went to my classmates and I said, can we make this real? Because as a person that's formerly incarcerated, as a person that has seen her peers graduate with a 4.0 GPA that were formerly incarcerated, non-traditional students, but at some point had to live in their car. As that person has seen that, has witnessed that, has experienced that, we need this. I know we need this. And everyone looked at me like, I got midterms, I got finals, you're talking about changing the course of history here. But I kept at it. And 3 years later, Fort House exists, right? 4 years later, yeah, Fort House exists because and everything that I went through, Fort House is literally a collection of all my experiences. Is literally, I make sure that education is at the forefront because I know what it can open us up to be. I know that, you know, when Dante spoke about that tenfold, I know that we can give back to our community tenfold. A way for me to even repair harm done to our community was purchasing an abandoned property. I could have gotten a new property, but I want the abandoned one. I want to remove that eyesore. I want you to know that I'm giving back before a resident even enters this facility. I want you to know that we are here in a positive way. So, yeah, that's my story. I went on a tangent, I'm sorry.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. I love the picture of Fort House, the before and after picture. It's fabulous. And anyone who hasn't seen it, you should go to the Fort House website because it's just, the transformation is phenomenal.
But that picture, the before was actually after we already put a new roof.
After you fixed it?
So
yeah.
It was worse.
Wow.
Before House, a 10-bedroom house. For those who don't know, we can house up to 10 residents at a time. They do need to be matriculating or enrolled in post-secondary education. And post-secondary education looks different for everyone. So it doesn't have to be college or university. It could be a certification program. It could be something. Higher education looks different for everyone. I just want folks to make sure that, you know, we minimize the intergenerational lack of obtaining a higher education degree. And I want people to have a fair chance when it comes to seeking employment, not just jobs, but actually careers.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So you guys have been so amazing. We're gonna, yeah, go ahead, Mako.
I want to ask this last question, and we're going to open up to the audience. So if I'm going to give this to Sanford and also Arthur, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. So there are typically three answers that the policymakers, prison administrators, and even educators or the media give when arguing for education inside the prison and also for reentry. They say that it reduces violence in jails and prisons. Second, that it reduces recidivism. And third, that it increases employment opportunities. But, you know, that's all good. And those are good, you know, answers for institutions and for the economy and society. But I want to know, like, for you, why was access to quality education important beyond like those, you know, for employment and for reducing recidivism? And so Sanford and Arthur, and then we're going to open it up to the audience.
If possible, can I add to that when you guys finish? Because
Yeah.
I would love to share. Thanks.
For me, education beyond, you know, the financial aspect and things like that. Hello? I'm sorry. It went off a little bit. I want to be an example for my daughters. You know, I want to be an example for my brothers, because it wasn't until I was in prison I realized that, because I'm the oldest on my mother's side. It wasn't until I was in prison and my brother was in prison with me also, I realized that he was following me. You know, I was the example that he was following. I was the male, because I'm come from a single family. I'm a single parent household also. And I was his male role model. And it wasn't until me being incarcerated, but with my brother being incarcerated at the same time, that I realized that he's following me and I'm setting a terrible example. And, you know, and as a brother, someone who really cares, you know, I felt like almost had his blood on my hands. I felt that everything he's going through is because of me. And I want to know, like, you know, how can I fix this? You know, how can I be a better person, you know, a better role model, a better brother, and then now being a father, you know, a better father. You know, I want to be that example, not just to my brother and my kids. I want to be an example in my community, the same community that I once tore down, you know. So I thought it was important to pursue an education. And you know, when I first came home in 2017, August 2017, I wrote the one semester January 2018. I started immediately, and I would talk, you know, positivity into my brother, because once again he didn't have no help for us when it's time for him to re-enter. So he came home with a prison mentality. He was so aggressive and he was so combative. He just didn't want correction. He didn't want to hear anything that you had to tell him outside of what he grown to know, which was prison for a very long time. So what I would do is, for the longest, I would just lead by example, and I would plant seeds, you know, of encouragement and tell him why it's important to get an education, and you know, why I think it's important for him to get an education and things like that. And at first he wasn't receptive to the idea of getting education. He thought it was, you know, it was just a waste of time. He was living a certain lifestyle that he didn't want to change, you know, a lifestyle that I felt like I introduced him to. And it was a long process, but till recently, till last semester, he just enrolled. And like I said, you know, I've been planting little seeds, and leading by example, because like I said, I started a associate's degree in 2018, and the reason it took me so long because life was still going on. I still had to raise a family, I still had to work, and I was dealing with everyday struggles. Like Tia said, I was faced with the same issues when it came to housing. Didn't have no credit history, had a felon, and being in a state like Florida, I would say, for lack of better terms, it's not so forgiving for felons. They put you in this little box and try to keep you there. So even when it came to getting jobs, they wouldn't ask you, they don't got the box, oh, do you got a felon? They ask you to sign this waiver for them to run a background check. You get what I'm saying? So you still being put in that category, and doors were shut in my face because of, that the felony that I have. And education, like I said, to go back to education, for me, the point of it, me receiving education, was to be that example. Like I said, my brother is now enrolled in college, and it's been a struggle. He's leaving the past in the past, and embracing his future as a student. And I don't want to take the blame, but I do, take some type of credit for being that role model to my little brother that's now doing the right thing.
I'd like to echo everything that Sanford just said. I mean, it's very powerful. One of the things that make education important for formerly incarcerated people is it helps us to measure up in society. It helps us to reach a fuller potential. It makes us have access to having the ability to be part of the solution as opposed to being viewed as part of the problem. It actually makes us become agents of change. It helps us to switch the narrative and change the view of stigmatization that's associated with formerly incarcerated people. As Tia mentioned earlier, it puts you in a position where you're not just getting an entry-level job at Dunkin' Donuts, but you can measure up. You can have that job, but how do you measure up out of that job? So it allows you to put yourself in a position to show your true worth and to not be defined by the worst moment in your life. Education does that. Quality to access education does that. And it also establishes a network for us with people that are collaborating to help us along our journey. So there are community organizations, there are universities, there are faith-based institutions. There's so many people that have a stake in helping formerly incarcerated people segue back into society. And in the interest of time, I want to pass it on to Dante because I want to share some of this time with him. I know he wanted to say something.
Yes, for me, I wanted to attend college while incarcerated because I wanted to be smart. I, thought very highly of people that have went to college, and it was just something that just seemed so far to reach. And in the back of my mind, I had already, thought that I would, find myself working construction jobs and not saying anything's wrong with these professions, but like a labor-intensive job, and that would be the only profession I would be limited to. And I felt like having an education just opened up this world. And to my surprise, more than just open up a world of opportunity, it really broadened my idea of my perspective on society and what was going on in my community. I started out taking intro courses, and one was like sociology, which I, then went on to minor in, but still to this day, that's one of the proses I love to read in, and is one that, has helped me make so much sense of what goes on in my community, and so much sense of, why the things are in my community, and how everything like is intertwined. And before I didn't have that. Before I just thought I accepted things as normal. And now I see where, the inconsistencies and where, where certain policies that will impact one community over the next, and how you can easily fall victim to these things if you're unaware and you don't know how to critically think about what you see in your community. And these became the more or less the things that really encouraged me after being incarcerated to keep pursuing, because I was just hungry to really discover the things I didn't know. And I'm still learning to this day, and it's going to be something that I'm learning until I'm in my my latter years of life. But put simply, I wanted to be smart. I didn't want to, I did not want to be considered a criminal. I did not want to even come close to thinking about committing crime or returning to a life of crime. I did not want to go back and deal with sitting in anybody's jail and having someone tell me when to lock in, when I can go eat. I didn't want to subject myself to any of those things anymore. I learned my lesson, and I wanted to be smart.
And there is no doubt that you're a smart person, Dante. I don't think anyone listening here has any doubt about that. We have lots and lots of questions from the audience, and we're going to try and get through a couple of them. The first question we have is, and let's start with maybe Sanford. You can kick us off for this one. What are your plans for the future, and what keeps you hopeful about your future and the future of society? I know that's a big question, so you can just talk about yourself.
I plan on working, getting a job in the IT field. I really plan on just being a great father overall. I just want to be the best dad I can be, and that's by leading by example and teach my daughter that education does open doors. Education isn't a waste of time, but I also plan on getting to some more real estate and things like that, and building my portfolio, creating content, and giving back to my community. I eventually want to start a nonprofit organization in order to help formerly incarcerated individuals. So I'm trying to build the skills in order to do these things and jumpstart these programs. So right now I'm just networking and doing things like this, allowing my voice to be heard, just like the rest of us on this panel, so that the word can get out. And I just want to share my story and stories like mine, so that we can have these conversations. I believe that these conversations is important. So I just want to create a platform and a space for us formerly incarcerated individuals to feel comfortable and learn the skills in order to re-enter society. So ultimately, and create somewhere for us to have housing. I plan on, like I said, getting some real estate so that I could kind of do like a shelter kind of thing. So that's what I want to do, basically a shelter for formerly incarcerated, because that's a major issue, because not everyone has the opportunity or the resources or support to go home to someone. And like I said, I was fortunate enough to be able to go come home to my dad and live with my dad, and have that safe space in order for me to think about what I want to do in the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Sanford. Yeah, housing is such a big issue. So this next question, we're going to move along because we have so many questions. Our audience here are people who are tutoring and volunteering and doing that's how they're contributing right now. But a lot of them want to know, what more can they do? What can educators and tutors do aside from their current involvement of the actual work of tutoring? What are other ways that they can have an impact, big and small? Arthur, you work with a lot. You've started a new mentoring program and a one-on-one support program, right, with My Turn. Could you speak a little bit to what kinds of what are some of the ways that mentors and tutors can help and support returning citizens?
The My Turn program with Tufts University that we co-produced, it just kicked off this spring, is a very ambitious program that embraces formerly incarcerated people in an educational program, and it establishes, it gives them an opportunity to, I guess I would say, take advantage of the resources that a university like Tufts has for them. So there are wellness workshops, there are tech workshops. We give them computers, Chromebooks when they come home. We are invested in them as an institution and as a program, not only in their education, but also their employment opportunities. We have resources and we connect them with community partners that have jobs and things like that. So it's so important, I guess, to collaborate with like-minded organizations that are out here in the community that will help. So the My Turn program is something that is a collaborative effort. I keep using the word collaborations because it's so important to understand that years ago, you did not have everybody at the table. You did not have a lot of folks at the table trying to become involved in reentry. Now you have universities, you have key stakeholders, civic organizations, and faith-based institutions. So there are a lot of people that have recognized the need for the work that we do. But to answer the second part of your question about what can they do other than tutoring and teaching and things of that nature, look at the screen before you. Everybody, we're just a small portion of people that are trying to do this work. Tia's organization, Sanford, Dante, look at the stuff and the people that we're involved with. If you really want to do something besides what it is that you're doing now, find an organization that has a mission that's involved in the work that we do and become involved with that organization and supporting it. You can volunteer it. You don't have to support it necessarily financially, but become involved in it. In their mission and helping them to grow and expand, bring other people to the table. It's your voice, it's your access to higher voices in the political arena that counts. So become involved, support organizations like ours and universities that are coming forward. I think that's just such an important part of the work that we do, is to bring more people on board.
Thank you. Yeah. We just have time for one more question. So I'll put it out there and whoever wants to can jump on it. One of the issues that one of our questioners is raising is the fact that in some places you can be incarcerated and spend a lot of time in county jail as opposed to prison. So I guess in Los Angeles, you can be sentenced to up to 6 years in county jail. In Pennsylvania, it's only 2 years. But what are your thoughts on reentry programs and higher education being offered in local jails as opposed to prisons? Does anyone want to speak to that?
I know in New Jersey that they have like GD classes, but as far as higher education, they don't offer them because they want to have individuals work towards like 2-year or 4-year degrees. But I mean, in Los Angeles, 6 years is a long time. You could be almost to your master's by the time you're getting out, right? So I don't see why they wouldn't, because I know one big thing that higher education in prison kind of focuses on, besides just providing access to higher education, is retention, right? So it's not just acquisition, like, can we get these individuals to, sign up? Can we get these individuals to come on board with higher education? But retention is a big thing too. That's one of the things we focus on also with Fort House, partnering with local higher education institutions so that when they provide higher education inside correctional facilities, they're able to keep the retention on their campus because now they have housing near their campus. So I am all for it. I would definitely advocate for it. Of course, there's a bunch of nuts and bolts that need to be kind of worked out, like how long will they be sitting in there? Like, no one wants to start teaching someone higher education because it is a lot of resources. It's a lot of time that people come in and, you know, volunteer their time and, you know, put effort into this. So there's so many nuts and bolts, and I can understand why they don't have it there, because you're sitting there for up to 6 years, but it's not guaranteed, right? You don't know that. You don't know it might take you 2 years to get indicted. There's so many ifs and so many unanswered questions. I completely understand why it's not offered, but I wouldn't be against it. Maybe starting at an associate's degree, maybe something at a smaller level. But yeah, I have so many questions. We don't even have the time for me to kind of hash out such a big question.
It's very complicated, and there's a lot of, and it differs a lot from state to state. We only have time for one last question, and Dante, I saw that you had you wanted to speak, I think, but I'm going to throw another question at you. So, if you don't mind, could you speak to this one? When does reentry end? Does it ever end?
No, I would say it never ends. And the reason being, you know, from my past jobs, that I'm always constantly learning, you know, I'm always learning new ways to exist in the world, and getting a better understanding of what it means to be at the table. And give you a case in point, I used to just think that, you know, not having a space at the table just simply meant that, you know, like, you're not there. But now I'm realizing is that it's like, you're not a part of the conversations. You know, you're being boxed out of this whole, you know, plethora of information that will help you be successful. And you have to figure out how best to position yourself to access that information. And you know, the cultural capital that people may have and take for granted and don't even know that is something that you're lacking in. And you constantly are figuring out ways to one, you know, fit in with a group of people that don't know your background, and you have to push aside your past and, you know, take on the negative perspectives that you may hear from other people about people that come from your walk of life, and take it on a chin, because you can't afford to expose yourself in a way that would, you know, color the way people look at you. So you're always re-entering society at every level. You find yourself faced with some form of prejudice, or, you know, some barrier that you didn't even think about, right? That you may not want someone else to know or disclose about yourself. And then once that happens, your cycle just begins all over again.
Yeah, thank you, Dante. That was a very, very good summary. I think I see everyone else nodding along, and I think a great way to end before we hand this over to the survey portion. But I just wanted to say thank you, everyone, for sharing your stories, for your openness, for your honesty, and just for teaching us about this really complicated and difficult and never-ending journey of reentry. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. So Marie, can you give us some instructions for what will happen next?
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We know it's a bit over time, so I just want to be quick and respect everyone's time. Thank you again to the panelists, and Nomi and Mako as well. Before you go, we are going to close out this webinar, and a survey will open automatically in your web browser. I know it's been a really dense hour and a half to think through, but while this is all fresh on your mind, please leave us some feedback. We really read it as a staff and like to reflect on your thoughts after this event.
And also,
yep, go ahead. Go ahead, Mako.
And also, we're asking that please help fund our work. And so we depend on the donations of people like you to make these webinars happen, and also our larger work. I'm very tired. I'm fumbling through this. So please, you can go to our website, and then you can donate to the PD Green program. And to everyone that attended tonight and who attended all of them, thank you very much. You are already doing something by getting educated and by volunteering. And activism or social justice is a lifelong process. So please continue doing that. Thank you to our panelists. And please complete the survey for us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, everybody.
Thank you. It was an honor being on the panel. Appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Arthur,
You can send me an email about it.
okay. I'll give you a call right now.
Yeah. Okay. You have my phone number, right? Okay.
Yep. All right. Thank you all very much.
All right, you guys. It's been a pleasure. Nice meeting everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, panelists.
Oh, and Tia, can I, if I can find your information so that we can connect, I wanted to find out the information about the Ford House, is it called?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can hook up with me some kind of way and send that to me. I think
I'm going to send you my email address right now.
Okay. Thank you.